we try to keep things generic, but we talk a lot about professional development. We certainly talk a lot about leadership development. And all in all, we wrap the idea that all of us have, greatness inside of us. It's innate, God-given greatness. But in order to really reach those places and really live out that greatness, we have to become the best version of ourselves. And I know we hear that a lot now. That's become a term that we hear athletes say. And, I heard someone, a singer use that this last week. But I believe it. I really believe it. That if we begin to max out our capacity, then we become the success. It's not a destination we arrive at, but we really become it. Well, this morning, we're going to talk about this subject. And maybe it's a little different. Maybe you haven't heard this story in a long time, but it's a Bible story. And regardless of your thoughts on the Bible, I believe that some of the world's greatest wisdom, timeless wisdom, comes from the Bible. As a matter of fact, a lot of what, we read in personal development books today and leadership development books, look at the original content. It comes from teachings in the Bible. And we're going to talk about a little story that I think is going to touch where a lot of you are living, where a lot of you are feeling, and you're going to find yourself in this story. We're going to talk about the king that no one sees. And we're going to pull the story of David. How many of you guys remember the story of David in the Bible? Maybe when you were younger, if you went to church, and maybe if you didn't even go to church, you probably heard someone allude to David. He wrote, hundreds of Psalms in the Bible. He was, one of the greatest kings and prophets in the biblical times. And his legend, his lore lives on thousands and thousands of years later. And here we are talking about him today. But his story was very interesting in that he didn't take the normal path to the throne. He became king, but how he got there was very, very interesting. And I think that's relevant to us because I believe with all of my heart that all of us on this scope, every single one of us and your friends that aren't on the scope, that all of us have within us, seeds of greatness. And I say that with a lot of conviction. And I think you'll agree with me after talking to just thousands of people over the last few years and getting to see people from different backgrounds that have different stories and they come from different places. But if you talk to them enough, you'll spot it. If you're really looking for it, you'll spot those seeds of greatness and you can find out really what's in their heart and what's driving them. And you can sense that there's purpose maybe hidden behind scars and hidden behind wounds, but there's greatness really in there somewhere. And I believe all of us have it, but a lot of people, they never live it out and they never really experience living life in that capacity of really fulfilling the purpose that they have. And you know exactly what I'm talking about because you may be saying, that's me. I know there's something, I know there's some dreams I have, but how do I get there? It seems so very, very far away. Am I losing connection? Are you telling me that I'm losing connection, Heather? Can you guys see me okay, or am I going in and out? Very blurry. Okay, give me just a second. Hold on. Is that better at all? Clear here, in and out. Okay, you're good. All right, I think it was a little blurry because my camera was a little blurry. Hold on. Okay, let me see something here. All right, maybe, is that a little better? That'll work? Okay, very good. Well, let's get into it because we're talking about this young man that ended up, getting all the way to the throne and becoming king. Thank you. All right, very good. But his story was so unique in how he got there. He was this young boy working out in the field, tending sheep, and a prophet came to his house and said, I'm here to anoint the next king. And the father brought all of his brothers out. They were tall and broad-shouldered, good-looking boys. And the prophet looked around and said, no, the king isn't in this room. Is there another son? Because I know I'm supposed to anoint a king that's from this house. And someone said, well, yeah, there's the youngest one. His name is David, and he's out in the field and he's tending sheep. But, he's not the one that you're looking for. He's just a kid, and he's ruddy-faced, and the most unlikely choice. But to come to find out, David was brought in. He was the right one. He was anointed king. And after about 7 years, he actually ascended the throne. So here's the truths that I get from that story that I think might be relevant to some of you guys here today that have dreams, that have goals, but you just haven't got there yet. You're kind of in the middle of that process, but in your heart, it's there. You dream about it. You wake up thinking about it. There's a place you want to go, but gosh, it seems so far away. Let me give you some truths from the story of David. Number one is David was the most unlikely choice from the very beginning. He was the most unlikely choice from the very beginning. And the fact is, in your own life, if you look at people that might accomplish great things, you might, look for people that have the right backgrounds or have the right last names. Maybe they're just they've got an edge because they have a trust fund, or, their degree is from a more prominent college, or they have the look. You know what I'm talking about? They get off the bus and they have the look. They're the more likely choice to be doing what it is that you feel very called and chosen to do. But yet David was the most unlikely choice of all. Dad didn't even believe in him. Dad didn't even bring him to the room. His own father, because of his age and because of his appearance and because of his size or whatever it was, he was the most unlikely choice. And I'm telling you that you may be the most unlikely choice to do what you feel called to do on this earth. Maybe you don't have that look. Maybe you don't have that natural personality. Maybe you don't have the natural background to do what it is you're called to do. David was the most unlikely choice. From the very, very start. But if you look historically at some of the greatest inventors, some of the greatest minds, our presidents, people that ushered in great change into America, look at their stories. Some of the most unlikely people. Totally unlikely, to the point that no one believed in them and everyone ignored them until they built something so great that it couldn't be ignored. And I think that's where a lot of you guys are going to be. Maybe you've been ignored for a long time in this certain strain of what you really want. And the only time people are going to take notice is when you actually go out there and build it. And they can't ignore you anymore. Right? He was unlikely. Here's a second thing I saw. David spent a lot of time in the fields. And, the story says that during that time of out there tending sheep, a bear came and tried to kill sheep. And David had to wrestle and kill the bear. And a lion came. And a lion was wanting to get the sheep. But David had to, kill the lion. And then later on, down the story, his brothers who were in the army serving Saul, a big giant called Goliath, was out there, and he was, challenging the army and challenging the nation and challenging God. And little David, this little shepherd boy, stood up and he defied this giant. Remember the story? And used a sling and threw the rock and knocked the giant down and then killed the giant. The funny part of that, the amazing part of that, is that his time alone in the fields, when nobody was watching, when David was out there, his brothers, his big bad brothers are out there. They're the hero soldiers, but David is left alone in the fields just tending sheep. It was his time alone in the fields that provided the knowledge and courage on the biggest stage of his life. Because as he's facing this giant, he thought back and he said, you know what? I killed a bear. Nobody was watching, but I killed a lion. Nobody heard about it. It wasn't in the papers, but in my alone time, I did some great things. And if I accomplish that, if God helped me do that, why can't I stand against this giant? Here's the fact. What gets you on the biggest stage of your life, what allows you to win, is what happens when no one's watching. Because here's the fact. He could have easily run away and let the lion have the sheep. He could have easily backed up and said, hey, the bear can have it. But he didn't when no one was there. That's when your integrity is formed and your courage is formed and your strength is formed. Is when no one is watching. Guess what? When no one was watching, David learned the nature of sheep. He learned the nature of people. He learned what it meant to lead, and he learned what it meant to protect. When no one was around, and friend, what's going to get you the win on the biggest stage of your life is what's happening right now. When no one's watching you, in the most lonely place of your life, your courage is being formed and your integrity is being formed and your strength is being formed. So when the stage opens up, hey, you're going to be prepared. You're going to go right through that door when other people shirk away, when other people are scared. You're going to be ready because of what you did in your alone time. So don't despise where you are, right? Don't despise what you're feeling, and don't despise rejection. Don't despise loneliness. Don't despise what you're having to tackle and the obstacles you're having to do. Exactly what you need to go win when the opportunity opens up. Hey, let me give you this real quickly. Number 3. After he was anointed to be king, after the giant was slain, it took David 7 years before he actually became king. 7 long years. At least 7. Some say longer than that. And here's what happened in those 7 years. He was chased. The king got jealous. He was ran out of town. And here's the fact. The only one that knew he was king was himself and the one that chose him to be king in the first place. And there are going to be times that you feel like, hey, no one sees in me what I see. No one sees my gifts. No one sees my talent. No one sees my purpose. They're just casting me off to the side. Sometimes you'll be the only one that knows, and that needs to be enough. Just you and the person that called you in the first place. And that needs to be enough. You'll be the king that no one sees. You're the king right now that no one else recognizes, but you know within yourself there's greatness there. And you know you've got a purpose. You know you're chosen. You know you have a calling. No one else has to see it. But as long as you see it, and as long as you can remind yourself of the day that you were anointed in your dad's house, as long as you can remember that story and remember when you first began to dream of this thought, when you first had this idea, if you can think back to that, it'll keep you until everyone else recognizes it, which leads me to my 4th and final point. You know, the crowds, the people, they're always behind. It took him 7 years, some anointing, to actually sit on the throne and be king. And at that point, the Bible says that the people anointed him. God had already anointed him. But 7 years later, the people caught up to what God had said 7 years before. The crowds are always behind. People are always behind. And know that. Just because other people don't see what you see, it doesn't mean it's not real. Just because others don't grasp and understand about you what you know to be true, it doesn't make it untrue. The fact is, if you keep on pursuing and you keep on walking and you keep on getting up, finally the crowds will notice what you already know to be true. You just may be the king that no one sees. You may be the queen that no one sees, the entrepreneur that no one sees, the CEO that no one sees. You might be the songwriter, the performer that no one sees, the pastor that no one sees. But it's inside of you and it's still there. So keep wrestling the lions and keep wrestling the bears and keep learning the nature of people and keep forming your character and working on your skill set, because there's going to be a time when the opportunity is going to open up and you have to be prepared to walk through that door and take that opportunity. That's it. Faith, not fear. That's exactly right. Friends, I hope this was good. I know that some of you, you're feeling exactly what I'm talking about today, but just let me encourage you. You have greatness inside of you. You're a king. You're absolutely a king. And one day the people are going to catch up to what you know and what God knows. Hey guys, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Love you so much. Thank you for being on, and thank you so much for the hearts this morning.